Hello, friends, and welcome to our December of 2025 astrological preview. My name is Jenny Sellers. I am the creator and founder of True North Empowerment, and it is my gift to you every month to be able to speak with you about the astrology and the upcoming energy shifts and changes that are underway. So, with that, happy end of the calendar year. I kind of point this out in a lot of my videos, but the astrological calendar does not align perfectly with the calendar. So, whereas societally we are looking at really closing things down at the end of the year to prepare for new things that are upcoming in the upcoming year, energetically speaking, oftentimes that actually doesn't follow suit. It is at this time every year in the month of December where we're really starting to hunker down. We take stock of where we are, what we've been through. We really go internal. We look inside of ourselves to figure out what lessons we've learned. We hunker down, we prepare for the long winter months, which doesn't really come January align with the energy that we feel about making New Year's resolutions and really starting strong and feeling very motivated and inspired because at that time, astrologically speaking, we're still in the hunkering down phase. However, this year in particular, there is a lot of energy that is supportive of the endings and new beginnings. And I'm sure you guys have read about this in like pop astrology or pop updates about energy, but there's a lot of truth to it. So 2025 is the year of the snake. And what that means is 2025 provided for us a time to shed, to release, to allow ourselves to kind of undergo some of these more like physical processes of processing those emotions and really setting us up to shed the old skin so that we can kind of be rebirthed into a new space, almost like the energy of the phoenix. So that is true alongside the fact that 2025 is a 9 year. If you add up the digits 2 plus 2 plus 5, you get 9, which means 2025 is actually a year of endings. It is a culmination year. It is putting the icing on the cake and just kind of getting ready to start anew. If we look ahead to 2026, it is a 1 year. So there's lots of new energy surrounding us right now. There's lots of opportunities for us to be thinking towards building, crafting, creating something new. I will also preface that by saying it doesn't mean that, like, all of a sudden everything's going to be bright and sunny. 1 years are actually rebuilding years where we are inspired to kind of restructure and reformulate the foundations before we can really feel into and take action on that new energy. So we're also entering the year of the horse. The horse is a very action focused animal. So there's lots of drive to kind of take steps forward. So that's kind of where we are. So oftentimes, like I said, the energy of the season doesn't always align with what we are kind of urged to do societally. However, this year it actually kind of does. Um, so with that, let's just kind of dive into some of the overview of December. First and foremost, December 4th, we had the full moon in Gemini. It was the final of three supermoons for the year, which means that its power, its potency, its energy was ever more present for us. And in addition to that, it happened under a grand mutable cross, which just means that there were four squares happening in the mutable signs. This was also happening at the same time as a water-based trine. So what that all says to me in an astrological perspective is that there's been a lot of opportunity for some tension points to surface. That's what square energy is, points of tension in the mutable signs. So we might have been feeling challenged, especially under the power of that full supermoon, to really find ways to be extra flexible with ourselves and with others. The rigidity that was present for us in a lot of the early December timeframe was kind of urging us to find ways, and even just the smallest ways, to allow for more flexibility in our lives. That's kind of the mutable cross, and it can be challenging to find that flexibility inside of a cross like that. However, it was also being supported by this grand trine, which is a triangle, which is a very supportive energy in the water signs. So to me, that says that the key to getting through some of those points of tension where our flexibility was maybe being required of us without us really being able to feel into that, the key to that was held in the emotions. So really kind of returning to the heart space. What is it that your heart says? What is it that your heart is guiding you towards? Um, what are the quiet whispers of your intuition bringing forward for you as you take these steps forward? So that was all happening at the very beginning of the month with that powerful full supermoon in Gemini. Gemini is the sign that is tied to our thought processes, our idea formation, our idea creation. It's also the way we communicate. So some of those things could have been challenging for us as well there at the start of the month. However, with that grand trine supporting it through our emotions, it should have made it a little bit softer. So that was the very start of the month. It was not for the faint of heart, I will say that. For the remainder of the month, we have a huge spotlight on two important planets, Neptune and Saturn. Neptune has been retrograde for many months, and on the 10th, it turns direct. Neptune is the planet that helps connect us between this world and the next. Neptune is the planet that represents everything that's not tangible, the intangibles of life. And so, with it sitting right next to Saturn, which is the planet of structure, boundaries, foundations, lists, like to do lists, the go getters, all of those things, you've got this like nebulous planet sitting right next to this planet that only likes things that are tangible. And it has kind of created this dynamic of what are our dreams and how do we bring them into reality? So the dream world would be Neptune, the reality world would be Saturn. And they've been doing this dance together for quite some time. They've been going retrograde and then stationing direct. They've been doing this retrograde dance for quite some time. But on the 10th, Neptune turns direct, and through the coming months, it will exit Pisces and go into Aries, where it will stay for the next 14 years or so. Neptune moves very slowly around the sun. Saturn will also follow suit, although it does move faster. It'll spend about 2 to 2.5 years in Aries. But all of this also means we are exiting old patterns and entering Aries, which is the spark of life. It is the pure spark of life. It's the spark of life without any boundaries. It is the true essence of like the Big Bang, or even conception energy. So Neptune and Saturn are really the highlights of this month because um, the planets that are closer to the sun and even the sun itself, which move more quickly, will each be making a march around the zodiac wheel that will create squares, first with Saturn and then with Neptune throughout the entire month. So, if I'm looking at dates specifically, Mars is kind of the first planet to make this square. Again, right now, Saturn is sitting at 29 degrees of Neptune. Um, and Neptune is almost, if, well, as it goes direct, it will turn into 0 degrees of Aries. So, or Saturn's at 29 degrees of Pisces. Sorry, I misspoke. But anyway, Mars on December 8th will make its square to Saturn in Pisces. And then on the 11th, as it continues to move around the sun, it's going to make a follow-on square to Neptune on the 11th. Then the sun kind of does the same thing. The sun will make a square to Saturn first and then to Neptune on the 16th and the 20th, respectively. Then Venus joins the mix. It'll do the same thing, a square to Saturn on the 20th and then a square to Neptune on the 23rd. And then Venus rounds out the show. So we are going to be faced with, in December specifically, throughout the entire month, this tension type energy of what are our dreams and how in the world do we pluck them from the ethers to really establish those dreams here in reality. And there may be several points of tension along the way with how we feel inspired to do that in Mars, with how to even see the possibilities that lie ahead of us. That's the sun making those squares. Then, how do we find our path forward where we feel valued, where we feel safe, where we feel worthy? And how do we make those around us feel the same way? That's Venus's march through those squares. And then Mercury is how do we think about that? How do we create the space for new ideas in making our dreams out of the nebulous and into reality? So that's the energy vibe of December. It too is not for the faint of heart, but it also is an imperative part of the process for as we begin to step forward into a new calendar year that is at this time supported by new energy overall. So with that, oh, also on the 21st, we have the winter solstice, which means that is the day of the year where we have the fewest daylight hours. But after that, every day after December 21st, we start to gain minute by minute more daylight hours. This is why most of the holiday traditions are all focused on the light, because this is the darkest time of year. We celebrate the return of the light. Unless you're me, who likes the darkness, I kind of mourn every December 21st that the light will be returning because I feel most comfortable and most safe and most held gently in the darkness, which I know I'm an odd bird. But the winter solstice is on the 21st. This is also the start of Capricorn season. So, to my fellow Capricorns, happy birthday. And just know that the light is returning. It's what we celebrate at this time of year. And really, truthfully, if we're going to be making wishes upon stars this month, it needs to be how do we turn our dreams into reality? And how can we co partner with Saturn to make that happen? So I will leave you with that. I hope everybody has a very happy holiday season, however you celebrate, whatever makes your heart expand, whatever allows you to feel safe in sharing that heart with everybody else in your world and that light that comes from you and only you. Do more of that this holiday season and just know that you are held gently, loved, and supported during this time of year, but always, I am always available if you need insight or guidance or support in kind of figuring out what all of this means for you personally. So have a very happy holiday season. Thank you for sticking with me all year long, and I will return in 26 with all new energy to share with you. Have a good one.